$250 million in federal taxpayer funds were taken out of the mouths of hungry children, and as the FBI noted, they were, quote, funneled into luxury homes, cars, and lavish lifestyles while families struggled. You assured me then that you wholeheartedly supported the federal government's effort to bring those responsible to justice. I appreciate your sentiment, but a person's actions matter more than their words. Governor Walz, when did you first become aware of the fraud in feeding our future? A specific date, please.
Well, Congressman, it's good to see you. And having served in your job for 12 years, I can tell you my job is a little different as governor for 7 years. I take a lot of meetings. I certainly wouldn't specifically state, but I think during that pandemic, I think by late 2020, we started to see the irregularities. They were flagged. And I will note that we cooperated.
State officials were aware of the fraud in early 2020.
So you're asking when I, in my office, the governor became good, and I don't have a specific date. But what I would say is we provided witnesses, documents, the U.S. Attorney and the FBI, and 79 of those people have been prosecuted going back to 2022.
Okay. Well, when I was
Subscribe, God bless you. What's up, my fellow patriots? Welcome back to the channel, the home of unfiltered, no compromise America First commentary. I'm America Truth Channel, a proud right-wing patriot, constitutional conservative, Second Amendment defender, and someone who puts God, family, and country above all else. Today, we're reacting to explosive footage from the House Oversight Committee where absolute legend Representative Virginia Foxx from North Carolina absolutely torches Tim Walz. You know, the radical left-wing governor of Minnesota who is Kamala Harris's running mate. This is about one of the biggest taxpayer scams in American history, the Feeding Our Future fraud that turned Minnesota into ground zero for the largest COVID relief fraud in the nation. If you're sick of Democrats wasting your hard-earned money, protecting fraudsters, and then dodging accountability, buckle up. This hearing is pure fire, and I'm going to break it down step by step with my raw, patriotic take. Let's roll the first clip. Listen to this, folks.
Chair recognizes Dr. Foxx from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank our witnesses for being here. Governor, you've reminded people that you were here last June. At that time, I reminded you that the Feeding Our Future scam made Minnesota ground zero for the largest COVID-19 fraud scheme in the nation. $250 million in federal taxpayer funds were taken out of the mouths of hungry children, and as the FBI noted, they were, quote, funneled into luxury homes, cars, and lavish lifestyles while families struggled. You assured me then that you wholeheartedly supported the federal government's effort to bring those responsible to justice. I appreciate your sentiment, but a person's actions matter more than their words. Governor Walz, when did you first become aware of the fraud in feeding our future? A specific date, please.
Well, Congressman, it's good to see you. And having served in your job for 12 years, I can tell you my job is a little different as governor for 7 years. I take a lot of meetings. I certainly wouldn't specifically state, but I think during that pandemic, I think by late 2020, we started to see the irregularities. They were flagged. And I will note that we cooperated.
State officials were aware of the fraud in early 2020.
So you're asking when I, in my office, the governor became good, and I don't have a specific date. But what I would say is we provided witnesses, documents, the U.S. Attorney and the FBI, and 79 of those people have been prosecuted going back to 2022.
Okay. Well, when I was chair of the Committee on Education and Workforce, I issued you a subpoena in September 2024 because you and your administration were not forthcoming about how your administration, quote, failed to identify what has been described as the largest pandemic fraud in the nation, end quote. In September 2024, you were aware of the Feeding Our Future fraud and your administration's handling of it, correct? Yes or no?
2024? Yes, by that time we had already put people in jail and had extensively investigated.
This committee has testimony that the Minnesota Department of Education briefed your office about the Feeding Our Future's draft lawsuit and litigation hold on April 28, 2020. Let me jog your memory. Is that correct?
I can't speak specifically to that. And
Okay.
if it's
It was April 2020. That means Feeding Our Future received a total of over $200 million in federal funds after you and your administration knew about the fraud concerns. Why didn't you stop sending money to Feeding Our Future as soon as the fraud concerns were raised?
Congressman, is following the program, we notified USGA under the Trump administration's first term. We notified them, too, because it's a program administered out of USDA, and they were working to work through the process. Eventually,
didn't you
convicted.
say you were fearful of political retaliation?
No,
from
I
the
never said any
FOF
such
founder?
thing. I never said any such thing.
Well, that's what we understood. You were afraid of political retaliation. So, given the size and scope of the Feeding Our Futures fraud, I think you and your administration would have been on high alert looking for additional fraud in the state. But after seeing the handling of Feeding Our Futures and its $250 million in fraud, it came as no surprise to learn that even more staggering amounts of fraud, estimated at up to $9 billion, were uncovered in the Child Care Assistance Program, the Minnesota Medicaid program, and other programs. How could you allow such massive fraud schemes in your state to get to this point?
Congresswoman, we don't see anything by 9 million. Local press and everyone reports it about 300 million. But as I've said, if it's $1, it's too much. But we started in 2019 putting anti-fraud programs forward. After Feeding Our Future, we started going through and making sure every program had the integrity in it that it needed. And that's why you see convictions. That's why you see these programs
Why did it
forward.
take nearly 7 years for you to get engaged to stop the fraud? 7 years.
We started in 2019, Congresswoman. It may be a surprise. If you arrest someone for stealing a car, other people are still going to try and steal cars. What we've tried to do is bring program integrity. But I'll go back to this. We're not going to shut down programs that have things that are going well in it, and we need to find that proper balance. And I've acknowledged that every year we're putting things in place. And Inspector
Governor
General.
Governor Walz, you did not do your job. You did not do your job. You did not protect taxpayer dollars. You allowed massive fraud. You and Mr. Ellison allowed massive fraud to go on in the state of Minnesota. And it is unfortunate, as somebody said, that you can't be held personally responsible at this stage of the game. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Foxx goes right after him. Governor, you've reminded people that you were here last June. At that time, I reminded you that the Feeding Our Future scam made Minnesota ground zero for the largest COVID-19 fraud scheme in the nation. Boom. Straight facts. This wasn't some small-time grift. We're talking hundreds of millions, possibly billions, of taxpayer dollars stolen under the guise of feeding kids during the pandemic. And who was in charge? Tim Walz and his radical administration. As a right-wing patriot, this makes me furious. During COVID, conservatives warned that the massive spending bills pushed by Democrats would lead to fraud on an epic scale. We were called heartless for wanting oversight. Now we see why. Blue state governors like Walz turned relief programs into piggy banks for their cronies, nonprofits, and who knows what else. Meanwhile, real American families struggled with inflation caused by that same reckless spending. Watch Walz squirm. He tries to say they cooperated, provided witnesses, and that people have been prosecuted. But Foxx hits him hard. She issued a subpoena in September 2024 because his administration wasn't forthcoming. State officials knew about the fraud as early 2020. Patriots, this is classic Democrat behavior. They ignore warnings, let the fraud explode, and then pretend they were on top of it once the FBI gets involved. Walz claims ignorance on exact dates, the same "I don't recall" game we see from every deep state operative. My opinion as a right-wing patriot? This wasn't incompetence. This was negligence at best, and intentional enabling at worst. Minnesota under Walz became a sanctuary for waste, fraud, and abuse. Remember, this is the same guy who let riots burn Minneapolis in 2020 while calling them mostly peaceful. Now we find out his state fumbled the biggest pandemic fraud case. How many teachers, small businesses, or veterans could have been helped with that stolen money? Instead, it lined pockets of fraud rings. Here comes the hammer. Representative Foxx looks him dead in the eye and says, "Governor Walz, you did not do your job. You did not protect taxpayer dollars. You allowed massive fraud. You and Mr. Ellison allowed massive fraud to go on in the state of Minnesota." Yes. Tell it like it is, Congresswoman Foxx. She's 100% right. Walz failed his most basic duty, stewardship of public funds. And notice how she mentions Attorney General Keith Ellison, another radical leftist. These guys talk a big game about equity and helping the vulnerable, but when it comes to actual governance and protecting your money, total disaster. As a patriot who believes in fiscal responsibility, limited government, and accountability, this hearing proves why we need Republican majorities and America First leadership. Democrats love big government programs because they create opportunities for cronyism and voter buying. COVID relief exposed the rot. Trillions printed, mountains of debt added to our children's future, and fraudsters laughing all the way to the bank while Walz's team looked the other way. Let's step back and look at the bigger picture, patriots. This feeding our future scandal isn't isolated. It's part of a pattern under left-wing governance. Think about it. California with its high-speed rail boondoggle and homeless crisis despite massive budgets. New York with migrant hotel costs in the billions. And Minnesota with this fraud. Blue states rack up waste while lecturing red states about compassion. Tim Walz ran on being a teacher and coach, but his record shows incompetence and radical policies, from tampons in boys' bathrooms to letting fraud run wild. He was picked as VP candidate precisely because he represents the extreme left's agenda: open borders, defund the police vibes, and socialist spending. The American taxpayer is the real victim here. While Walz dodges responsibility, working families in flyover country pay the price through higher taxes, inflation, and a $36 trillion national debt. As a right-wing patriot, I believe government should be small, efficient, and accountable. Every dollar stolen in Minnesota is a dollar taken from Social Security, border security, or veteran care. We need real reforms, mandatory audits on all COVID relief spending, clawback of stolen funds, prosecution of everyone involved, including high-level enablers, and term limits plus accountability measures so governors like Walz can't just shrug and say, "We cooperated eventually." This also ties into why the 2024 election was so important. The American people rejected the Harris-Walz disaster. Now, with conservative oversight in Congress, we're finally seeing these hearings expose the truth. But exposure isn't enough. We need prosecutions, firings, and policy changes that put America first: secure borders, energy independence, tax cuts, and slashing wasteful spending. Patriots, what do you think? Should Tim Walz face personal consequences for this failure? Should the DOJ under America First leadership investigate these blue state fraud rings aggressively? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. If this video fired you up, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a breakdown. Share this with your friends and family. The more people who see the truth about Democrat governance, the better. God bless.